This is the lovely Chrissy, everybody, from Paradise Found. This beautiful, metaphysical, amazing story here.
Yeah, so Teresa Taylor, who is the shopkeeper here, she's not able to be here with us tonight, so from her heart to you all, we're so glad that you all have joined us here tonight to help support Patrice and her lovely work. So I really hate reading off a script, but this is a script. I'm going to read it to you guys. This gathering is going to feature a short talk from Patrice, where she's going to share a 30-year journey behind God Made Easy. And now I'm assuming that this story is going to involve the invisible string.
It will involve the invisible string.
I just read this story the other day, and if you haven't read it, it is just touching to the inner child, and I can't wait to give it to my own grandchild. So she's going to tell us about what has inspired it, how this message continues to resonate perhaps even more deeply today. We're going to have a Q&A afterwards. We have books available up at the cash register if you would like to support her work, get a celebrity autograph. And the shop will be open if you guys do want to do some other perusing. You're welcome to do that, but I'm just excited to hear about Patrice's journey, and so with
Take
that,
it away.
Floor is yours, my dear.
Thank
There's
you.
also some tea and cookies if you want a little nibble.
Yeah, delicious tea, by the way. I've been having it, and thank you so much, Chrissy. I really appreciate it, and thank you guys.
And this is Benny.
And here's Benny.
He's the shop mascot.
Thank you, Benny.
So cute.
That'll be great. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for coming out. And to say I'm excited is an understatement, because I have waited decades for this day. So I'm gonna tell you a little story, and hopefully this story will bring some inspiration to you, because we live in a crazy time on a crazy planet. But I can absolutely promise that there is something that I choose to call God, and that many different people call it by many different names, but there is something that is divine, that is in charge of all of this, even though it sure seems like he must be, she must be, they must be asleep on the job. But they're not, and it's all gonna be okay. So my story starts that I have always been a spiritual seeker. I was a little girl living in England, where I was born, who, when other kids were playing with their dolls and having, tea parties and Barbies and this and that, I was looking at my doll and wondering who she was, where she came from, why she was here, where we were all going. I was one of these deep thinking, like a little Woody Allen, but, a female, deep thinking type of person. So I was deeply on a spiritual journey, and the other aspect of my life that was always a constant was that I felt that there was something God wanted me to do, but I didn't know what it was. I had complete amnesia, but there was something. I knew there was something I was supposed to do. So fast forward, I was living in a mobile home. I live in a mobile home now. I lived in a mobile home then. I guess I'm trailer trash, but high-end trailer trash. I lived in a mobile home in Pacific Palisades, and I was working a full-time job. I was a single mom, and one morning, it was November 11th, 1995, I woke up from a dream. It was not a particularly exciting dream. I don't even remember what the dream was about, but I woke up and I saw these words hovering in the air. They were literally hovering in the air, bold black letters, God Made Easy. And I remember looking and going, what is that? Like, how could anyone make God easy? Like, how could you even do that? Like, how would you do that? Like, God, that's been pondered since the beginning of time, man has been, debating and trying to figure it out. What's God? And then this little voice, and that's the only way I could describe it. It wasn't like an alien being. It wasn't, it was just this inner voice, but it was a very definite voice. And it said, go get a notebook and start writing. And it was 6 o'clock, I was a single mom, it was a Saturday, I was exhausted, I didn't want to get up and start writing, and I tried to lay my head back down, and again, the best way I can describe what happened was I was pushed back up, go get a notebook and start writing. So I reluctantly did as told, and I grabbed a notebook, and what happened next is, to this day, every time I talk about it, I get what I call God bumps, goosebumps. Something came through me, something poured through me. I didn't cross a T, I didn't dot an I just wrote. I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And 1 hour later, I wrote the last word, and I was now holding in my hand 20 pages in a spiral notebook, and I had no idea what this was. I started rereading it, and I thought, this is really good. Like, this like covers a lot, you know? But I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a teaching just for me or something that I was meant to share with some friends. I didn't know. And then the voice spoke again. You know, I'm always reticent to say a voice because I don't want it to sound like, you know, I'm saying, I heard channeled. It was something that was so undeniable. It was like being given your marching orders, being told what you're supposed to do. And the voice said, this is to be a book, and it will go all over the world, and it will reintroduce the wonder of God to people of all faiths, or to people who have no faith at all. And your job is to get it published. And I had no idea. I had always loved writing. I had written poetry and song lyrics and angsts of journal pages for years on end every night. I'd always been a writer, but I never thought I would write a book. You know, I thought you had to be special, like you had to go to college, and I didn't go to college. You had to be real. You had to have an author gene. You had to be born with the author gene. And anyway, now I'm being told I've got to make this a book, and your job is to get it published. I didn't know anything about how to get a book published. I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't know what I now know. Ignorance was bliss in my case, because now what you need to do to get a book published is, it's a lot. You have to write a query letter, and you have to find an agent, and then the agent has to see if they can find you it's a lot. But I didn't know any of that. All I knew is I had finally been told what it was that I was supposed to do. I was like, yes, that's it. This is to be a book. I was just told it from on high, it's to be a book. So I went to Kinko's. This was on a Saturday. I went to Kinko's. I brought my 20 pages in my spiral notebook, and I paid them to type it up. I didn't even own a computer. This is 1995. Amazon wasn't even a thing yet. The internet had basically just kind of started, you know. They typed it up. On Sunday, I went into a Barnes & Noble in Santa Monica, and I looked for spiritual books that were small, because I knew this was not going to be a big book, 20 pages, and you know, it's a little book. So I looked for 3 books that were spiritual books that were small, and I wrote down the names of the publishers. And on Monday morning, I proceeded to call all 3 publishers, not knowing that there's gatekeepers and receptionists and, you know, all kinds of people before you get to the acquiring editors. But on that day, because I was just doing what I was told to do, I called up and I said, hi, my name's Patrice Karst. I've written a mass market book about God. It's going to go all over the world. It's going to reintroduce the wonder of God to people of all faiths or none at all. And I'd like to give you the first opportunity to decide if you'd like to publish it. And I remember on that day, I got through all the gatekeepers to the acquiring editors, who all 3 of them said, what's the title? And I said, God Made Easy, because someone had to, you know. And they all 3 said, send me the manuscript. And 3 weeks later, I was signing my very first publishing deal. But the story gets even better. Wow. So this was a small publisher he was in Marina Del Rey. It was called DeBoer's Publishing. He did all the, you know, they're still around. They do all the old school metaphysical, spiritual, new age books. But he was very small, but he made the galley of the book. A galley of the book, for those of you who don't know, is when a publisher, before it becomes an actual, book, you have the, kind of printed up copies that you can then, because then when I thought, all right, if God picked me for this particular message of God Made Easy, I better make sure this book sells a lot of copies. So I went and I read that what you're supposed to do when you publish a book is get blurbs, get other famous authors in your genre to write nice things. So I started sending out the galley of the book with letters to a lot of new age spiritual authors, asking if they would please review my book. And lo and behold, I started to get all kinds of reviews in, people like John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and just a lot of those names that you might know now, Greg Braden, Doreen Virtue, a lot of the people from back in the day. So I started getting these wonderful blurbs. One of the people I had sent the book to was an author named Marianne Williamson, who some of you know who she is. She was a best-selling New Age author. And I am at my day job, because I was working a full-time job, and I got a phone call from this agent in New York City, and he said, "Is this Patrice Karst?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "My name's Al Lohman, and I'm Marianne Williamson's literary agent, and I found your manuscript at her flat, because I was picking up her mail, and I'm gonna make you rich and famous." And I thought it was like someone's husband doing a prank on me. I was like, "Oh, sure, Al, yeah, well, sure, I'd love that, that'd be awesome, you know." And I'm playing along, and he's real, he's like really real. Long story short, because I only want to talk for about 20 minutes, he ended up selling the book to Time Warner, which was one of the biggest publishers in the world at the time. And Time Warner published my little book, which this is the one for back in the day, called God Made Easy. Ellen Burstyn, one of my favorite actresses, read the audio version of the book. It was published in Dutch, French, and Spanish, and at the time, the publishers weren't letting authors put their email addresses on the books. Don't ask me why. But they would let you put your snail mail address. So I started to get letters from rabbis and priests and atheists and suicidal teenagers and CEOs and everybody from 6 to 96 writing that somehow this tiny little book had somehow arrived in their life and had some kind of profound effect, enough that they would take the time to write and snail mail a letter to an author. So it was an incredible time for me. In the meantime, while this was going on, I was still working, and I had my son at the time was I think 5 or 6, and he was in school, and he used to cry every day when I would bring him to school. He had separation anxiety, unlike anything I'd ever seen, and he was sobbing, and then I'd be sobbing, and I was a hot mess the rest of the day, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was beside myself, and one morning I just told him, as I was dropping him off, I said, "Honey, just pull on the invisible string, and I'll feel it in my heart, and I'll tug back, and you'll feel it in your heart. We'll be connected all day long." And I'm telling you, his separation anxiety ended that morning. And by the time I picked him up at school, all his friends wanted to know about the invisible string. Is there one to my Uncle Enrique in Mexico? Do I have an invisible string to my hamster that died? Is there an invisible string to, and on and on and on. And, hi, come on in. There's some poofs right here, you can sit.
Oh,
But sit,
I
please.
think back there, Jeremy.
Oh, okay, all right, wherever you want to
Yeah,
go.
we'll go over.
Okay. All these kids wanted to know about the invisible string, and so I knew I had something really special. I knew that somehow this abstract concept of love and connection was made tangible by an idea of a string. So I knew that I could help kids with this, but I didn't know the first thing about writing a kid's book. I had a spiritual book out there for adults, but I wrote it. I wrote it as a children's book. We found a publisher, he published it, and the invisible string came into the world. Now, all right, twisting back again. By now, the imprint, Warner Treasures, Time Warner Books, but Warner Treasures was the gift book imprint. It fell apart. Sometimes in publishing companies, there are imprints that dissolve, and it dissolved, so I lost my editor. The book was still out there, but I no longer had anyone at the company that was championing the book, and it was like all falling apart. So I got the bright idea that I would try to see if I could get my rights back to the book and get another publishing deal for it, and with a publisher that was intact. And lo and behold, I got the rights back to it, and guess what? I couldn't find another publisher that would do it, because what I began to realize is that publishers never want to republish a book that has already been in print. As far as they're concerned, it's old news. It's like, that's already been done. Why would we want new. So it didn't happen. So, all right, let me move along. Meanwhile, Invisible String was beginning to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It was this was a tiny publisher. There was no marketing, no advertising, but word of mouth, people started using this book. The military, the prison system, hospitals, hospices, adoption groups, foster groups, therapists, school counselors, divorce attorneys were giving it. So the parents, the book is all about how we're all connected by invisible strings of love, and they transcend time and space, and they can even go all the way to heaven. So the book became, and is still to this day, the #1 book for children for loss and grief. And an interesting aside, there's only one page in the book that has anything to do with death. It's one page where the kids are asking mom, you know, they've asked mom, does my string, could it reach me if I was a submarine captain deep in the ocean? Yes, even there. Could it reach me if I was an astronaut out in space? Even there. And then there's one page where the kids say, could my string reach to Uncle Brian in heaven? And mom says, yes, even there. And that one page on that in the book, one word, heaven, is what turned it into the #1 book for loss for children and for adults, because that's the thing about Invisible String is adults buy it now for themselves and for other adults. It kind of crossed over into the adult world too. Interestingly, and here's a pitch for always following your own heart, no matter what. The publisher, the original publisher of the Invisible String, did not want death in a kid's book. He said, no, we're not, you're taking that page out. And I said, oh no, we're not taking that page out. He said, no, we have to. It's too depressing. Parents aren't gonna want a book where death is spoken about. And I said, no, we absolutely must keep it in there, because I'm trying to show that the invisible string transcends time and space, and we're still connected to people that we love that pass on. You know, like what? The string it stops now. It's all over now. And he said, I'm very uncomfortable with this. And I said, well, we're gonna just have to be uncomfortable because we're keeping it in. And thank God, right? Literally, thank God. So, Invisible String is now taking off. I'm now making my living as a children's author. I went on to write many, many more children's books. It has been an absolute miracle in my life, the Invisible String, but the voice was not done with me yet. Every couple of years, it would say, you gotta get God Made Easy back out there. Would you take it out of print for? Who are you to take this book out of print? And it really was. Who was I to take God's book out of print? He gives me the message, he, she, it. I'm always gonna keep saying that because I don't think of God as only one, bearded man in the sky. But if you like a bearded man in the sky, that gets to be your God. That's the beauty of it all. Is, God is good with all of it. God doesn't care what name we call, God cares that we call, is what I believe. So every couple of years, I would try to find a new agent who represented adult books, and I would try to get a publishing deal, and every couple of years, it didn't happen, until 2008. So I'll just tell you this part of the story real quick. In 2008, I got a publisher who wanted to do God Made Easy, and he did it. And I hated the version that he did. I hated the cover, I hated the design. He spelled rabbis, rabies. He wrote a wrong address in the book. It was an absolute freaking disaster. It was a disaster. And I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I knew I could not let this book hit the market because I was like, it was horrified. I was horrified by it. So I took my life savings and I bought him out. I bought all 5,000 copies of the book that he had printed, begged him to let me out of my contract. He did, thank God, thank you. And I got all 5,000 books shipped to a warehouse and destroyed. So a couple of them, you might, if you go on Amazon, you might still see this really ugly green and yellow version of God Made Easy because a couple had gone out into the marketplace, but for the most part, it was over. So that was 2008. And from 2008 until last year, I couldn't get God Made Easy published. And then one day I did. I found an agent. She sent it to this publisher, one of the big 5 publishers, Hachette, which ironically, another imprint of theirs is who does my kids' books. But this we didn't even realize this till it was just the most amazing coincidence. But not that I believe in coincidences, but coinkydinks. They published the book. It just came out on February 17th, which is 3 days ago on the Lunar New Year. And God Made Easy has a brand new life. And I can exhale because I honestly, you have no idea when you feel like God is like telling you you've got to do something and you're like striking out, like it's just not happening. It's not a comfortable thing. Like everybody, it's really easy as an author to sit up here and say, you just got to follow your dreams and you too can have success. But anyone that's in the arts knows that that is not true. There are so many incredibly talented writers and artists and musicians whose work we'll never see. The masses will never know about it. And it has nothing to do with talent. And it has everything to do with destiny and grace, luck. In my case, a lot of perseverance, because I don't give up. I really don't give up when something feels like it must happen. But I don't know, if this hadn't happened, maybe I would have given up. But it did happen. They published it. Come on in. Oh, right? No worries. And here it is. So this is God Made Easy. I'm so thrilled. Now, a couple of people have asked me, and then I'm going to let you guys ask me any questions you want. Some people have asked me, is the book the same as what you wrote? Because by the way, when I wrote it in the 1 hour and Warner Books published it, they did not change one word, which is unheard of. When I write books now, you send it off and then they send you back their edits and then you go through it and you send it and you go back and forth and back and forth. And very often it doesn't even look like the original book. But in the case of God Made Easy, they published it exactly, verbatim. Maybe there was a comma or a couple of, punctuation things they changed, but it was the same exact text. So now, 30 years later, there were a couple things I needed to update. Pretty much almost nothing, but a couple things like, I'll just read you like a couple of pages of this so you'll know. Okay, so, and the book, by the way, is dedicated to the hope and vision that all the beings in all the worlds will one day be happy. So in case you haven't noticed, the world is feeling pretty chaotic lately on every level. Global weird weather and natural disasters, crime, hate, economic strife, political polarization, worldwide terrorism, drug addictions, alcoholism, technology moving so fast you can't keep up, wars, starvation, pandemics, vanishing bees, suicide, suffering, and melting ice. We're running on a treadmill that's going faster and faster. Changes are happening. It's time to remember. Has it all gotten your attention yet? Hey, whoa, stop. There's good stuff too. Yep, you're right. It's all here on planet Earth, just to name a few. Rainbows, shooting stars, babies, sex, hot fudge, the Grand Canyon, cuddly creatures, good comedy. You get the idea. But guess what? There's someone who's gotten really bad press, a bad rap all these years. In fact, a lot of us can't even say the name without a bunch of religious dogma pouring through us, none of which has anything really to do with him, her, it, by the way. So maybe during all this insanity, it's time we all got reacquainted. In fact, maybe that's been part of the problem. Forgetting, introducing, once again, and backed by popular demand and need, God. He was never really gone, by the way, just forgotten in all the crazy and confusion. And anyway, and then the book goes on. So that's a little taste of it. And now I'll answer any questions. So I'm thrilled, I'm excited. God Made Easy. I can go now. I can go home now, which I'm not ready to do quite yet, Not that I'm not looking forward to it, because I actually am. The little bells just, they're waiting for me. No, I'm not ready to go yet, but I literally did not feel like I could leave the planet until this book got republished. I was like so mad at myself that I took it out of print and then got the stupid rabbi's rabies publisher. It was like, ugh. Anyway, it's done. I can breathe. I can exhale now. And in the same way that my children's books are sort of my love song to the children of the world, God Made Easy is definitely my love song to all my fellow brethren on this crazy whirling planet that is so full of such dichotomies and ironies and things that make absolutely no sense until they absolutely do. And there's such wonder and beauty and grand amazingness here, and there's such suffering and sorrow, and none of it has ever made any sense to me. But I hope that when you read God Made Easy, it'll make a little bit more sense. Because by the way, I just want to end with this. I would have never, ever been so presumptuous as to think that I could sit down and write a book called God Made Easy. Like, if it hadn't come to me in the way that it did, I would have, like, that's a pretty nervy thing to do. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna like make it simple. Yeah, just me and the Pope and all the other but it happened. It's what happened. They used an ordinary single mom living in a trailer in Pacific Palisades to write a book to try to simplify the wonder of all of it. And actually now, in hindsight, it all makes sense why it had to happen as it did, because this is the time for God Made Easy. Like, I've always thought the planet was a pretty crazy place. I've always looked around and said, this place is a hot mess, But now more than ever, it's like we're all looking at each other like, can you even believe the news cycle we're living through? Like, what is going on? So I think the timing for God Made Easy is perfect, and now I let her go. I'm not going to be doing a lot of marketing and promotion. A lot of authors spend their life, they hire publicists and marketing people, and I don't really do that. I'll do a couple of book signings, but quite frankly, it's God's book. So if he wants it to do well, it's on him. It's like, I did my part. I gave birth to the book, and now take it away, God. There you go. I did it. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and I'll answer any questions you've got, and I'm sure some of you. Questions? John.
Can you tell us a story specifically about a letter you got that really got to you?
Oh my, I hate that question. You know why?
I know,
And
that's
no
what I
offense to you. Because the letters, truly, each one is more remarkable than the one before. Are you talking about God Made Easy letters or Invisible String letters?
Well, I think that letters in general, because I think there probably really be some overlap.
So the one that just came to my mind
Yeah.
was a letter, because in the same way that I got those letters from all over the world for God Made Easy, same thing with Invisible String. It's been, people's reactions to these books have been just phenomenal, but the one that really got to me, see, I deal a lot with death because the book is known as the #1 grief book. I get a lot of parents and grandparents and siblings and teachers that are writing to me whenever there's a disaster like the Sandy Hook massacre or the big floods in North Carolina, or you name a natural disaster, the Invisible String is always being used to help with that disaster. But I got a letter one day from a family whose child had passed away, and they told me that before their son, I think he was 8 or 9 years old, before he passed, the whole family together, and this happens a lot, was reading the Invisible String, so they can all talk about the fact that they're gonna always be connected before the death happens, right? For people that are going through, he had cancer. And they buried him in the casket with a copy of the Invisible String, and they wrote to tell me that. And these are the kind of letters I get. They're pretty phenomenal. There's a children's cemetery that has now been built in England with a Invisible String garden of statues, all from the book. So I get unbelievable letters, and I think the reason why Invisible String did so well, even though there was no marketing campaign behind it, was I made a promise to myself when I very first published God Made Easy, that if anyone ever took the time to write me, because that takes so much energy, to take the time out of your busy day to write an author, not knowing if they're ever even gonna get the letter, let alone respond to you. But I made a promise to myself that I would always write back. If anyone took the time to write me, I would write them back. And the only difference between then and now is that now I get a lot more letters because there's a lot of books now that are out. But I write everyone back, and in a way, they feel like, I believe, so touched that they were heard, that their message, their story was heard, and that I've written back to them. That I think they become like love ambassadors, and then they tell their friends about the books, and then their friends tell their friends. So it's sort of like, I don't want to call it multi-level marketing, but in a way, it's like they're my love ambassadors, and they're spreading the word. And whenever I go to school and talk or meet children and talk, I always ask them, and I'm going to ask you guys to do the same thing. Will you please, whenever you see someone that's feeling lonely, or you're feeling lonely yourself, you remind yourself that we're all connected by invisible strings. We, in essence, live, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. It's an old friend of mine, Connie. We live in a web of love, because if I'm connected to you and you're connected to her and she's connected to him and he's connected to that guy down there, we live in a web of love. This is it. So even though we're being tested so severely right now, you know, in so many different ways, on every level, love wins. Love will always win. So we've got this, you guys. The bad guys aren't going to win. They're just not, because the light is stronger than the dark. That's how it's always been, and that's how it will always be. So anyway, that was a long-winded. I am a long-winded girl, but luckily he didn't give me a big book. He gave me a nice small book, because I have a very short attention span. So if I have good time ice skating, she's going ice skate.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Come on, you guys, you got questions.
So have you heard the voice anytime lately?
Yes, I do. I hear the voice a lot. It's not, I wish I could say all my books were the same way. They're not. Every book is different. Some books, it's been like I wrote a book called How Jackson Found His Joy Again. And that came to me also in a dream. Saw the title and it poured through me. So the voice is there. Sometimes when I want to hear the voice, I can't hear it. You know, those times when you feel disconnected from God, I have that a lot too, where I want to feel the connection so much. And it's just like the wire's gotten like, where are you? I'm floundering here on this planet that I don't love. You know, help me. And sometimes I don't feel anything. And then at other times, there he is again. You know, there it is again. And I guess the idea is that we have to hold on to our faith, no matter what. Even if it's not like every day you're going to have divine revelations. And as much as we've the book The Secret, the movie The Secret Manifestation, and all, you know, there's a thing called destiny and karma and grace. And why else is it? Why do we live on a planet where it's one child won't have enough food to get through the night, and I'm getting to go to, like, you know, a high-end sushi bar? Like, how does that even work? None of it makes sense. So God is either bipolar, or there's a really good reason for all of this. And I believe there's a really good reason for all of this. And hopefully in God Made Easy, again, it's not me. It was a collaboration. It was my voice. It wasn't like, when I reread it, it was like, it was me. It was my humor. It was my voice. It was my belief system. But I didn't think when I wrote. I literally just wrote. So, do I hear the voice? Not enough. I wish I heard it all the time. There's nothing better than being in that communion with the divine. It's the highest high. There's nothing compares to it. But I don't get it all the time. Once in a while. I'm feeling it right now with all of you. When I got the goosebumps, when I started talking. Any other questions?
I have a question.
All right.
Who here has read Invisible String? Show hands.
Do what?
The Invisible
Have you read
String.
The Invisible String?
And who has passed it on?
Yeah, and who's given it as a gift.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's the same message, right? The invisible string was that we are all connected to the people that we love. We're all one, basically. And you know what the message of God Made Easy is? We're all connected to everyone we love. And there is one great, again, I want you to read it, because I want to give you whatever your belief system is, just like the way the voice told me. This is a book for people of all faiths, for people that have no faith at all. And I've had a lot of atheists write to me and say, I would have gone to my grave not believing there's anything, but your little book made me realize that I don't have to go to church to find God. I could just go to the trees, you know, I could just play with a baby. I could listen to great music, or look at great art and realize something profound came through to create that. You know, because in the book I say something like animals, you know, who do you think made them? They're all living, breathing, sharing our world. Who do you think made them? You know? So, yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. And if you would like to buy the books, I've been told to tell you that they are up at the cash register. And then I'll be very, very, very happy to personally sign them for you. And this is my book launch for this book. I'm not going to do a lot. I'm going to do Godmothers in a few weeks, and then Thousand Oaks, Barnes & Noble, and then that'll probably be I'm not really planning much more. So this is really meaningful. I can't even tell you I'm gonna cry. I don't wanna cry though, but it's very meaningful for me to come. Like, I literally prayed that this day would come, that I would get this book republished. And here it is. And you get to witness it, and I'm very happy. Thank you so much.
Patrice, I just want to say that you're like this incredible onion person.
I'm
that
an onion?
You're very new in my life, but the layers about you are incredible. I am so grateful that you somehow crossed my path.
Oh,
And then I get to
God,
learn all
Linda.
these incredible things about you. It's just really beautiful. And
Thank you.
obviously, I'm going through a lot right now with my mom and her health.
I know
and
you were.
this book will be really touching and beautiful. And
It's gonna have some.
these kind of things,
Real-
they mean a lot.
Oh, and by the way, because I'm I have control issues, I wanna just tell you something. A lot of people, when looking at God Made Easy, and by the way, when the book first came out, people used to say to me, oh, it's so small. And I'd say, well, yeah, that's because it's God Made Easy. If it was gonna be God Made Complicated, I would have done a big book. But they'd say it's so small. But because it is a small book, and people tend to go, oh, it's like lots of little sayings, which it is, a lot of little messages, but that's not the way to read it. So I'm gonna tell you the way you need to read my book. If you wanna do it the right way. But you get to do it once you buy that book, it's out of my hands, you get to do whatever you want. But the way it came through was from the very beginning to the very end. So you're sort of supposed to read it kind of like a real book, page 1 and then 3. But if you wanna do it the open page, that works too. But I just wanted you to know the way I like people to read my book. All right, thank you.